welcome to the Miracle Mansion podcast. My name's Marcus, I'm Head of Treatment and Counselling at Broadway Lodge. And who have I got with me today?
With you, Marcus, you have Michele down.
And Michele, how long have you been clean?
It's over 15 months now. I do normally count the days, but I couldn't find my diary. It's coming up, it must be over 470 days now.
470 days, fantastic. So before we start this Miracle Mansion podcast, let me ask all our viewers to like, subscribe, pass the message on that we're back in business. The podcasts are going to be going out regularly on all channels, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else they're posted on Facebook, etc., etc. So just get everybody checking in. Anyway, Michele, I have to say you're looking lovely.
Thank you, Marcus.
And basically what we want to do is we're just going to have a conversation about addiction, recovery, life, basically how you got to Broadway Lodge and what you're doing with yourself. So
brilliant. Okay.
Tell me a little bit more.
Right. Okay. Well, I've suffered with addiction for years, long time. It started off with recreational drugs, really, the rave scene and things like that. And to be honest, I probably have always been an addict. I've always got addicted to things, no matter what it was. I've always got addicted, whether it be gym, whether it be boyfriends, spending money. Even when I had my first daughter, I was addicted to her, became obsessed with how she looked, with her being clean, with her like everything, absolutely everything.
So slow down, let me just ask you one quick question. How long ago do you recognise now that you had this addictive trait in you?
Oh gosh, I probably about from the age of 14. But it wasn't until I came to this wonderful place and I started the treatment, and even now, looking back, that I've seen all these traits, and it wasn't necessarily like a substance, but the behaviour of the addict and the addiction.
Cool.
So
you now looking back, upon reflection, you can look back and think to yourself, actually, I've had these behaviour traits since I was 14.
Definitely.
Where do you think they come from?
I think, one of my biggest ones was with my weight, and that's still one I've got with me today, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to change that, but I can't. Okay. And also is with cleanliness and with tidiness, neatness and things like that. A lot of that stems from childhood.
Right, okay.
I had a chaotic childhood and living in quite a lot of squalor, living in squats and things like that.
Okay.
And so when I got my own place, and I always wanted it to be tidy, and I do quite get that now.
Yeah.
And I do always do that with my children. Always wanted them to be clean, to sometimes an obsessional point, especially when they were babies. And I noticed that was probably a little bit of postnatal depression as well. But when I look back on it now, it was quite bad. Right. I used to teak up their prams and things like that. That's how bad I got.
Really?
Yeah.
So it sounds like the dysfunctional childhood gave you what I know now to be quite a positive benefit in your, I wouldn't say OCD, but your cleanliness for today, because I certainly felt the benefits coming to see you the other day when I came to your home the other day. I thought, this is lovely.
Yeah.
And I definitely knew it had, as soon as I walked through the door, I looked at her and I thought, oh yeah, Michele's had a stamp on this.
Absolutely, because I'm actually at the moment living in one of the dry houses.
Yeah.
We have our chores, we have a board, and so everybody does them. But to be fair, the only chores I don't really do are upstairs, because I've got the downstairs room now, and I don't really stick to that, because I'm always hoovering, I'm always cleaning out the fridge, I'm always doing it anyway, do you know what I mean? Because that's just me, and it's my home, and I would do it if I was living on my own, so I don't mind.
Cool.
I don't mind, So I keep it nice. And I have a thing about smells as well, that's another little thing. When I was at school, when I was a kid and that, because living in sort of the environment that we were always like the flea bag kids, which is quite cool, but kids can be like that. Yeah. So we smell And so I've got a thing about smells as well, so washing powders, and I carry that through today. And so in the house I still do it. I'm always doing it with washing powders. I've got a couple of people in the house into it as well, like, smell this, smell that. And I'm always putting them earplugs in and things like that. So yeah, the house smells nice as well. Good.
So I better be careful what I say about the different. Both houses were absolutely immaculate, but there was one that just topped it.
Yeah.
The other house is going to have to hum with me saying it, but Sophie topped it. Anyway, so tell me a little bit more about your addiction and your childhood.
Yeah, I mean, childhood was quite traumatic, and there was quite a lot of bad things, and there was a bit of sexual abuse. I'm not going to go into that, but that was quite bad. And so that, again, the cleanliness and things, because I grew up feeling quite dirty, and from about the age of 14 I started self-harming, and it wasn't until, I'm starting to get to know myself now, and through doing like the program that I'm doing, like with the fellowship, which is AA, and the steps, I'm learning so much about myself, and I learned so much in Broadway and the counselling and that. I've learned that a lot of the behaviours and the self-harm and that, which is part of my addiction, was definitely the self-harm as well, was to do with childhood. And I did some things to myself as a child, and I used to bath in Dettol and things like that as a young adult, and still have to stop I don't do that anymore, but I'd done that quite a lot to one point, and I did that a lot through my addiction. I was drinking bleach, and had caused some long-term damage to my esophagus and things like that, which wasn't very pleasant. And I've been in quite a lot of psychiatric wards. I've done the rounds. I must say, this is the longest I've not been in a psychiatric ward for over 15 years, because I'm not in my addiction anymore, although I will be an addict forever, I know that. I'm not actively drinking now, and so the self-harm doesn't happen anymore. Always happened when I drank. And this was the first time I'd ever come to Broadway, to any rehab facility. I've tried AA before, because it was part of a probation order, because I'd got into trouble quite a lot with the police and that. And I went to AA, I didn't like it. I thought it was all God-fearing people, and I looked at the steps and the promises, and I just thought it was people feeling sorry for themselves, but I wasn't ready. And I do try and explain that to newcomers as well. Sometimes the time isn't right, and it wasn't ready for me. I mean, I started, when I came into rehab, it was the first time, and I will admit, when I went into my detox, because I wasn't detoxed at Broadway, because I have complex medical needs, because I also have MS, I've got epilepsy, and have other mental health problems. I've got emotionally unstable borderline personality disorder, which is due to the childhood. I was detoxed at a place in Essex, and when I was detoxed, I went in and I blew zero. And I felt actually like there was people that went in and they were blowing really high on the breathalyzer. And I felt quite hard done by.
Right.
And I'll be honest, the addict in me thought, I've still got another drink in me. And the addict in me did, and it wasn't till I came to Broadway and I started the treatment in the big house that I thought, you haven't. And I started to really understand addiction. I didn't understand it. I didn't think that anything was going to work. And when I first came into Broadway, I kept my bank card on me. I used to carry it around in my bra.
Oh, okay.
So
you broke the rules?
Yeah, I was naughty, I did. Because I was at such a low point in my life. About a year before coming into Broadway, I'd taken the really, really bad suicide attempt and ended up in an induced coma.
Okay.
And that was my life. I was in such self-pity. I really thought that I didn't want to live.
Was you in a bad way, was you?
Such a bad way, and I really was in a bad way, and I felt that I'd be better off. Everybody would be better off without me. That's how bad I was. It was an existence. It was like drinking from waking up to falling asleep. I had no self-care. I literally would spend the whole time in bed. I would wet myself, then roll over to the other side of the bed, wet myself there. By that time, that would be dry. I used to wash 6 times a week because I had to go to hospital for treatment. I even stopped doing that in the end. That was the only time I knew I washed, because I'd wash to go for treatment. I didn't even drink, and it wasn't actually until I knew that I'd come to Broadway that you could smell vodka. I used to drink the vodka before I go into the hospital, right? So I learned that in Broadway. But yeah, I was at such a low place that I didn't even think rehab would work. It was like a last-ditch attempt. And I'd been here for a couple of weeks, and I truly surrendered after that, because coming here was totally different. I didn't know what to expect. And I started to feel valued, and I held on to that. And it was actually during the counselling, during the group therapies and things like that, because it's bloody hard work, it was hard work, and it was actually you, Marcus, and Chrissy, that got to me. And it was raw, and it was painful.
Okay. Very
painful, and I'll never forget it, for about 3 days. And it was hard, and it was harsh, and I'd always had it in my head, be it that my addiction got me to the point of losing my children, which was heartbreaking for me, because I'd always wanted to be a good mum, but that's how bad it got. It took priority over everything in my life, and yeah, I lost my children over it. And I'd always thought that my children have always been well dressed. They were fed. They didn't have the sort of childhood I had. Yeah, right. They didn't have the sexual abuse, but they had the emotionally unstable. They had the emotional neglect, and okay, they didn't have the physical side of it. But I didn't realise the impact of how bad that was until coming here, and I learned so much. This place is unbelievable. It's absolutely amazing. I learned so much, and that when I started to take that on board and accept that, that's when I surrendered.
I think I remember a group where I remember facilitating a group with you in a big hall.
It was in the lecture room, yeah. Lecture room, yeah.
I think I remember that. Where I think I was just working with your denial and your justification for what you felt was like, you being a good mother, and I just started to take that down brick by brick, and I remember getting quite emotional about that. I remember
absolutely. And it took a while to accept, and I've had to accept that now. And the hardest part of being a mum is accepting that. Yeah. I wasn't a good mum, and and it is hard to stay. And I really have to take myself out of going into that self-pity, because I didn't do self-pity like I used to say to Andy, my lovely counsellor. I love Andy, and I used to say to Andy, I don't do self-pity party, I do self-pity rave. Because I was so in self-pity, I did not realise, and I've just done like my step 7, and one of my biggest defects of character definitely is self-pity. Resentment, there's a lot, self-pity is massive with me, and I can go into that quite easily even now. That's why this programme and the fellowship is massive. It really, really helps me, because I can reflect on that now and not go into it.
Cool. So tell me, when did you arrive at Broadway? Was it during COVID?
It was during COVID, and what happened was it was actually the 29th of June, I started treatment. I went into Parkmore, as it was, in Essex.
Yeah.
And I came into the big house on the 13th of July. I did a 2-week detox, because I had to go down to the detox unit here at Broadway because of the COVID restrictions. And then I came up on the 13th of July. And it was a couple of weeks before I truly, truly surrendered. And it was the hardest but the best thing I've ever done in my life. And literally, I came out a year ago yesterday. And I remember the day that I left saying to everybody, I will be back here in a year, because it's been my thing that I've always wanted to come back and volunteer. I'll do anything for Broadway, because I owe Broadway my life. Also CGL that funded for me, because without this place I wouldn't be alive. I really wouldn't.
No, I remember, if I remember rightly, well, first things first, you look wonderful today, but you didn't look like that when you first came in.
Do you know what? Right, absolutely not. Yeah, I'm like a totally different person. I mean, yeah, I was so unwell, so unwell. I mean, my behaviour was awful. I mean, I was so loud and I was so desperate to be liked. And yeah, I mean, physically, I looked totally different. I was 5 stone heavier. My self-care was awful. Yeah, and I was so unwell, and I was so loud, and I'm still quite loud now. I'm just that way, but I was desperate to be liked. But inside, I was just like a shell. I was just empty, and it was the counselling, through the counselling here, that I realised that I was in so much pain, and that's why I was loud.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be needed. I was doing so much people pleasing.
Yeah.
I mean, there was even a complaint from the neighbours at one point because I was that loud. I mean, I did some terrible things. In here. I'd lap dance someone. I did horrendous things because I just wanted to be liked. I just wanted to be loved. And, you know, I still find that I've got a lot of insecurities, which I'm working on. And I'm doing counselling at the moment because I have a lot of trouble with self-worth and that, which is a lot to do with childhood. But that's my issues.
Yeah.
But being here has taught me so much, because there's a reason that we all have addictions. You don't just wake up one morning and say, right, I'm going to be an addict. But I've learned I've always been an addict. If it's not the substance, there's always been something.
Okay. So tell me, why did you keep your bank card? What was that?
Right. This is really honest, and I told Andy about this on my last counselling session.
Brilliant.
This is crazy. Right, okay. Kept my bank card because I didn't think anything was going to work for me.
Right.
And I had it in my head, right? Crazy I was thinking this is. I was going to leave one night, leave all my clothes and everything here. I was going to go into Western. How I was going to get there, no idea, because I still don't know how to get to and from Western now. I have to do it day by taxi. I was going to go into Western, score myself some drugs and get as much alcohol as possible and as much medication, and have a massive final blowout, and no one was going to know who I was, and do myself in a hotel room.
You're going to kill yourself?
Yeah. And even I shared it actually on my birthday share. I always felt that my life was going to end for suicide. I've always felt that since I was a teenager. I don't feel that anymore.
Fantastic.
I want to live today.
Yeah.
I want to live today.
Well, I guess back when you was a teenager, it was probably difficult to see a life worth living with the upbringing that you had.
Absolutely, and I had it's very traumatic, and I don't even think it was self-pity then, and you know, I'm dealing with a lot of that now, and I'm moving on from that, and and that's what I'll do, and some of it's a bit too painful to open, but I do need to deal with it, and Pandora's box will come open, but in time.
Yeah.
You know, needs must. And, you know, since I've been in recovery, I've had to deal with quite a lot as well. But again, it's thanks to this wonderful place and the support of everything and the fellowship and everything. And you know, the foundation that Broadway gave me, that I can deal with it. I mean, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia not long into me being out of rehab, and it was a scary time because it was so rare. There's only two people in a million that get diagnosed with this type of leukemia. And my dad was scared to tell me he was dealing with that himself because he was frightened I would go on relapse. And possibly previous I would have done because I didn't have the tools that rehab gave me. And because that's what I've done in the past. This isn't the longest I've actually been sober, but it's the longest I've been in recovery. Because I've always self-sabotaged. Things have been all right, and then I've gone and sabotaged it. I don't do that today because I'm in recovery, and it's totally different.
Brilliant. Tell me a little bit about your journey at Broadway Lodge.
My journey at Broadway Lodge, wow. Okay. It was bloody hard work, but after, like I say, that time, it was throughout 3 days, you and Chrissy got me. But it was deep and it was bloody hard work.
In what way?
It was painful, and I had to do a lot of reflecting and a lot of admitting to myself. Okay. And it was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, admitting. because of my childhood, what a bad mum that I had been. Because for the first 11 years of Jessica's life, I put everything into being a parent. And then it was only after I'd started with the drinking, and I did used to go out and do a bit of cocaine, and a lot of my family didn't know about that. But in the end, the alcohol was the biggest problem. It really started to take a grip, and it sort of affected Jessica from when she was 11 years old, definitely more so. And my two youngest, for sure. I mean, I have to face it, my daughter and my son call someone else mum and dad. Well, mum, you know. And that is harsh, but I accept that today because I've made that happen. It's the consequences of the addiction. I learned to deal with that in Broadway, and I don't resent anything. I actually am grateful today to social services because they protected my children, which is something I didn't do. I've been able to do that. That was, you know, and in Broadway, I did a lot of reflecting. It was hard. It was bloody hard work, and I did the worst thing. I got involved with someone, which it can really take your eyes off your treatment, and it could have done had I not have been so into my treatment. It really could have taken my eyes off the ball. And unfortunately, what happened was when he left, he did relapse, and that was a real horrendous night because I was really worried about him, and that was really dangerous for me. Fortunately, it was into the latter part of my treatment, and I had the strength to deal with it, you know, and I took it to the staff and I dealt with it the right way. And thankfully it was, you know, and that was higher power again.
It sounds like you did a lot of soul searching here at Broadway.
Absolutely. And it was the best time, and I do think, you know, the rules about... And I think COVID was a really great thing because of not having the outside people coming in, having visitors, and I think the phone thing is fantastic. I really do. I think really having a phone non-stop would be ideal, right? But everybody's different, and everybody's recovery is their journey, and you're your own soldier and you march your own beat. But I personally thought not having a phone was a fantastic time because it took me away from being at home. I could concentrate completely on me. Because one thing you do have to learn, and I've learned this, and as well being a mum, although I wasn't a good mum, I really wasn't, recovery comes first. It comes before everything in life. It comes before your children. Because without your recovery, you haven't got your children and you haven't got your life. And I've learned that today. You know, and there's been times when I've had to, really had to keep my feet on the ground and think I needed to go back to look after my daughter, but then thought I wouldn't be able to look after her if I've made that decision, that rash decision, and rushed back to be there for her. Because if I did that, I wouldn't be looking after myself properly and continuing on with that treatment that I'm carrying on in my third stage in the dry house. Because I'm not strong enough yet. And then I wouldn't be able to look after her if I'm not looked after myself. And I'm just so fortunate that I've got a daughter. She's amazing, and she understands that, and she gets that, you know?
Cool.
She totally gets that.
If I'm honest, so you would, although you'd got yourself into this situation with that man who currently resides back in prison, I was never really worried about you in terms of that because you just seemed to be focused. I remember when you spoke, we had to speak about the relationship and what the boundaries will be, and obviously that's been quite a new thing for Broadway Lodge, working with people that have got themselves into situations because the first thing that happens when some people clean up is they start, particularly in rehabs, mixed rehabs, they start looking at each other and thinking, she looks nice, he looks nice. People start to scrub up and start to look well and start to look a bit better. So the relationships are the quickest fix to start fixing yourselves in rehab. But as you said, it doesn't really help. It kind of takes your eye off the ball sometimes, and people can get focused on that. And we've seen that, we've seen that happen a number of times. And in the past, what we used to do is we used to separate people and send them off to do, we might keep one and send one off to the other. But what we realised is that caused quite a lot of trauma and resentment. So we chose a different approach to working with it. And as long as you didn't break the rules in terms of getting intimate with each other, we made a decision that we would work with people as long as they were being honest with their counsellors and speaking about their feelings and emotions alongside their feelings and emotions for each other. And we would work with that process and explore that as therapists, alongside making sure that they dealt with their addiction as such. And if people weren't dealing with their addiction and then their relationship situation was taking over, then we'd probably have to do something about it, because obviously the focus is your addiction, your children, the impact that your childhood has had on yourself and others, the impact that your parenting has had on yourself and the children. If you're now focused on, Jiminy Bob, who's just who you've just met for 5 minutes, and you've lost the focus. As professionals, we'd want to address that. But what I noticed with you, with both of you, to be honest with you, I know you both were into each other a bit, but you was really more focused. So when it all went wrong for him, I didn't really worry about you, because I didn't think that you was going to leave or run off to be with him. You were focused, about, treatment and going to third stage and recovery and stuff. So I wasn't particularly worried of you as such. But I've loved your focus on your recovery since you left treatment, but I wanted to ask you a question, really. I'm going to ask you a question, and the question is this: what was your highlight here? Because I know that people have, and I always say to people that this, coming to Broadway Lodge, and it's the Miracle Mansion for a reason. Okay, you will laugh again. You will laugh from your soul. You will have belly laughs like you've never had, or you haven't had in a long while. You will make friends and acquaintances that you'll probably stay in contact with for quite a long time after treatment. Yeah. So what would be your kind of highlight of you being here when you was here? Or was there more than one?
There was more than one, but exactly what you said, someone said to me, and it's so true, and I'll carry this sort of mantra with me. Being in recovery, the worst thing about it is you get your feelings, and the best thing about it is you get your feelings. And you cry like you've never cried, and you laugh like you've never laughed. And I laughed. There were some times when you belly laughed, like real, because you get your feelings back. But one of the biggest things for me was actually, and it makes me sound like I'm being big-headed, and I'm genuinely not, was being given the responsibility of being a buddy, which I really liked, because I felt I'd lost my purpose as well by losing my children. Yeah. And also, when I was told that I was going to be deputy house leader, that I was chuffed with that, because I've always been the sort of person where you could walk all over me, very much so, and a lot of that came out of my life story, and I didn't realise how much resentment that actually led to. And I'd be like the sort of person you could shortchange in a shop, and I'd know you'd shortchange me, but I wouldn't say anything about it. And it just showed how far I'd learnt and how much my confidence had grown in Broadway. And then I actually was house leader. And to be able to be given that responsibility as well, and it didn't go to my head or anything, but I just thought it was really quite nice that I was trusted with that, because I didn't realise how sort of serious the staff take it. You have your meeting and you say, and it was just nice because that I was entrusted with that. Because I took it on as well, and I used to enjoy doing the board, and I'd make sure I knew, when new people were coming up, I'd always do their little welcome at the top, or if it was someone's birthday, and then I'd put a positive affirmation at the bottom and do my little personal touches. And the menus, I had a thing about the menus. I carried that for the whole of it, and everyone was telling me not to do it, but that was just my way of like, I don't even know if it's people pleasing, that was just my way of like looking after people, because not losing my purpose of being a mum again, you know, something that I always carried. But yeah, that was probably one of my big points. And, you know, when I did my, when I had my medallion, a couple of people saying that they wanted to be like me when they finished their treatment touched me, because if you'd have said that to me, I think I'd done in all about 13 weeks here in the end. If you'd have said that to me, even 2 weeks after, you know, when I first surrendered, even when I kept my bank card, when I'd like actually had a giggle about it, saying to Andy, you know, that on my last counselling session about my bloody plans, you know, if you'd have said that to me then, I would never have believed it.
How magical is that thing?
Absolutely, that's what I mean.
Came here and said that on your medallion that they wanted to be like you.
It gives me goosebumps now, just to think about it.
Yeah.
And you know, like even now that goes on, you know, it goes on. And like today, I was going to do this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And when I left Broadway, I left on the 6th, and it's the 7th of October today, and I left the 6th of October.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned around and said when I left, I'll be back in a year's time, you guys will see me. And I was a bit of a nightmare, because I'm a bit loud and everything, or whatever, but you know, in a nice way. And I said, you will see me again in a year's time, because it's my absolute dream to come back here and volunteer or do something to pay Broadway back. And it's crazy. I'm here, sat here, a year, just over a year to the day that I said that, doing a podcast.
Mad, isn't it?
Absolutely, higher power. Absolutely.
There is a God, there is a higher power.
Absolutely, and God loves me today, you know.
Sure, bloody.
And, you know, in recovery, everybody's like I say, we've all got our own journey, we're our own soldiers, and we'll march our own beat. And I you know, I do shares quite a lot now. And I done a share recently in Western. And when we were here, my fellowship's AA. We used to have our AA Zoom meetings. And the people that facilitated that group from AA, I went back and done a share for one of those people's home groups. I don't want to say names because of confidentiality. I've done a share for our home group.
How massive is that?
Massive. And doing an ex-resident share for Broadway. I've done 2 Zooms, and I've done an actual face-to-face ex-resident share, and that was the most important share in my life.
Do you know what I love about you the most? So, if I'm honest, I love your energy and your enthusiasm, and sometimes, obviously I've got you on my work phone, and obviously I've got quite a lot of ex-residents on my work phone, but I get that message from you, and every time I think, oh, for God's sake, Michele. And I'll read it, right? And then it proper just brightens the day, or I'm just like seeing how well you're doing, or you'll send something about your daughter, and it would just be like, look at this woman. Look, and it's just, do you know what I've noticed as I'm talking to you now? I've noticed that since you've left here, it's just got brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. Brighter side. Now I remembered it. Was it the wedding the other day?
My sister got married in June, yeah.
I was at the wedding the other day. I think your daughter went to school.
Secondary school in September, my youngest, my baby, yeah.
So, although I don't respond, please believe me, I read it.
That's all, because I know that, you know, I'm not the only person in the world anymore. You know, I used to be, you know. But I'm not full of my own self-importance anymore, I get it. You know.
So, yeah.
Not all the time, Marcus, anyway, you know what I mean? But no, seriously. And, you know, and I get that. And I get everybody's got the, you know, everybody's busy. But, you know, what I like about recovery as well is what you just said there. You know, without breaking yellow card rules, you know, there has been some newbies and I've sort of like not taken under my wing, but like seen a spark and seen that there's that.
Have you taken them under your wing?
Absolutely. And seeing them like flowers blossom, and like, it makes my heart smile.
Yeah, definitely.
And it, just to do that for one person, that's my thing. And you know, like, I'm going to be going to college in January, and I'm going to do a certificate into mental health.
Cool.
And then I'm not sure long term what my plans are going to be. I really have no idea. I definitely want to do some sort of swing to recovery. I've done a little bit of I do quite a few shares, and it scares me, but I face my fears, and there's nothing quite like it. And just to be able to reach out and just to help someone, I'm not saying that I'm like, you know, I can go out and save the world or whatever, but just to be able to reach out and help that one person, you know, or to, then that does me. That does me. Because, I mean, I was that person once, and to be able to come back and do that to Broadway, and to be able to come back and do something like this now, to talk like I am today, is massive for me.
So I've got a couple of questions. Well, I haven't got a couple of questions yet. I've got loads of questions, so I'm going to just ask one. My first question is this. If you were going to give advice to somebody looking at this who might be considering coming to Broadway Lodge, what advice would you give them to survive this place?
Right.
Or to get through it, or to...
I say it, and when I do shares here, right, it's bloody hard work, but listen to what people are saying, listen to the counsellors, listen to the staff, right, because they know what they're saying, and I know it's tiring, and I know you think at times like, oh, I've had enough. Throw yourself into it, right, and take everything, what they say, take it on board. Listen to what they're saying, right, because most of these people, what I love about Broadway as well, is you're not just college grads, do you know what I mean? You're not just like, you've not just gone in, it's not just black and white with you guys, it's real. What I love is you guys, most of you have been here. That's what's so great about Broadway, you know? So you can empathise, you can relate, do you know what I mean? So you know what you're talking about, and grab hold of every little bit of information, every little bit of advice, every little bit of experience, take it on board and just embrace it. And like, unfortunately, relapse and things like that is massive, and like, that's something you have to deal with in recovery. So grab everything, and if you really want it to work, believe in yourself and just keep going. Keep going and keep going and keep going. And don't listen to other people, because there's always people that are going to say it won't work, because I had that a lot. People saying to me, it's not going to work for you, it's not going to work for you.
Really?
Yeah, a few people said that to me, especially when I did my SWAT, because I did 90 days, and I did it in 40. But if you want it to work for you, it will work. It's bloody hard work, and it's something that takes work out every day. But how hard was your addiction? What work did that take? So embrace it and listen to people. Listen to people.
Cool. Second question, how's your health at the moment?
It's not too bad. I have MS anyway, so I'm a lot more mindful of it. I have my treatment every 28 days.
What does MS do to you?
MS, it's a neurological disorder, so it's progressive, but I'm on top of it. I get my treatment every 28 days now, so I go in and get it done. It affects your balance, it can affect your speech. Ironically, sometimes it does actually make you appear intoxicated. Okay. You can slur, you can stagger, and my balance has got quite bad, but I'm aware of that now, and I do actually I carry a card that says I'm not drunk, I've got MS. Which is good. I've had to tell everybody in the dry house.
Well, that's ironic.
It is ironic, isn't it? I've gone from actually being pissed all the time to sometimes sounding it.
Yeah.
And I get tired, and I do suffer with chronic fatigue, and I've recently found out, for someone that talks a lot, which is quite frustrating, but I eventually will lose my speech and my ability to swallow as it will progress. Who knows when that's going to happen? Now, previous, I would have gone right into self-pity, and it would have been pour me, literally pour another drink, or I didn't pour it, I was just stick it down my throat because I didn't use glasses. But now I'm just like, I've reflected on it, I've had my tears, and now I'm just like, okay, there's no point in wasting the time that I have got thinking about it. Enjoy what I've got now. Same as I do with my mobility. I've now had to get myself one of those trolley things. My sponsor bought me that, bless her. I use it because one day if I do end up in a wheelchair, which does happen with people with MS, it will happen when it happens. Make the most of what you've got today. I do that every day. I wake up every morning grateful that I've woken up sober. I go to bed every night grateful that I've, had a lovely day. Not always lovely, because it's not always, as I say, it's not always unicorns fighting glitter and rainbows and sunflower fields. but it's better than what it was.
Cool. And my penultimate question to you really is, how are the children today?
They are absolutely fantastic. Layla, my youngest, she has just started secondary school. She got it's a bit like a merit. She got put on the school website for working really hard, which I'm super, super proud. And I'm going to be seeing her in a couple of weeks. We're going to be going trick-or-treating. Harry, he's having his troubles at the moment. I'm not going to really talk about that because, But, he's an 18-year-old boy. He's doing what 18-year-old boys do. Jessica, my 29-year-old, absolutely wonderful. She has got 4 children. She was married 3 years September, and she's been with her partner 13 years now. And she's just gone back to work, and she's actually working in teaching assistant. She's one-to-one now with a little boy with special needs. He's got autism. And my daughter's always had a way with children since she was a child, and it's going absolutely fantastic. They just had a SEN meeting, and his mum's absolutely over the moon at how this little boy's responding with Jessica.
Probably.
He actually touches Jessica now, and he looks at her, gives her eye contact and things like that. It's going amazing. Super proud of my family, super proud of my grandchildren, and just absolutely got the most amount of gratitude for life, for everybody, and appreciation that my children let me back into their life. And so what I will do for them is I will show them that by staying sober every day.
Cool. Well, I'd just like to say before I ask you my final question is that I'm super proud of you. I really am. I just love your energy and your enthusiasm. And yes, you're loud, but that's just you. You love people. You love their good points and their bad points.
Absolutely.
What was bad turns to good, and sometimes what was good turns to bad. I mean, I certainly knew through the work that I've done over the years that one of my character defects were jealousy and envy. Now, jealousy and envy at the time were actually bad character traits or character defects for me, which have actually turned into being absolute positive ones because I make them work positively for me today. So I just see your energy and your bravery and your support and commitment to recovery. And I'm not surprised that you will be in a meeting and you'll pick up people and just guide them in the right sense. And I think, to be honest with you, what I see is that's kind of like the mothering sense in you. Really.
Sure.
I picked that up here. So you becoming deputy house leader, and as you know here, we take that. We rely on those roles, those peer roles or patient roles for people because they help us to support the guys here, and you guys are actually closer with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was natural for us to look to you to say, would you be prepared to do this? And it's not an easy role. It's not, managing, supporting, leading 20 to 25. I don't know how many people were here at the time with you, but we've got 20. I think we've got 23 in today in the main house. It can go up to 28. Leading, supporting that amount of addicts. It's probably like herding cats sometimes.
It is challenging. We had some naughty people talking about the laptop, mate. Oh my gosh.
Listen, we still have those problems now, but not too bad. But I think, to be honest with you, what I accept is that that people are gonna. We know that people aren't gonna. People are gonna. We want people to behave, but we also know that people have just come from a life of many years of addiction, alcoholism, whatever it is. And so, there's going to be some instances where people, have fun. There's going to be hijinks. People are going to, look on the laptop at things that we probably wouldn't like them to. They're going to buy more shopping and generally. But I think what's most important for us is as long as you don't break those 4 golden rules, we can work with most things.
Definitely.
Work with most things. So, and my last question is actually based on something you just said. You're studying now.
Yes.
Tell me what that's about and what you intend to do.
Okay. I have always, and it's quite ironic because I've always wanted to do sign language. And I did an introduction into sign language at the beginning of the year, but I had to cut that short because unfortunately I had COVID and it really wasn't, I was really quite poorly because it affected my MS as well. So I'm going back to do a certificate in sign language level 1 and 2 in British Sign Language because it's achievable today. So I'm going to be doing that from January, and I'm also going to be doing like a basic certificate into mental health because I've got mental health problems myself, and I do believe that when you can empathise with someone and you've been there yourself, you can relate. I'm not saying you know everybody because everybody's problem is there, but everybody's different. We're all unique, but to be able to just have that little sort of bit of mutual understanding with somebody, and I've definitely, when I've been up and done some bits at the detox unit at the hospital, I feel quite comfortable there, and I have definitely decided that I would really, really like to do something around recovery sort of based, or this sort of work, this sort of field.
But you're going to go towards mental health, are you?
Yes.
Good.
For sure.
Good.
For sure.
Well, I am going to say thank you so much for coming in. It's like I said, it's always, I actually feel sometimes when I'm around you, like it's almost like an honour to be in your presence.
Oh my gosh, I feel that about you, Mark, because I feel that about the whole place.
It's just like, if I can't happy hump around you. I can't be annoyed or irritated because you will just the light that shines from you just changes that. If I've had the ump off in my head and I open the door and it's Marcus, it's just lovely, and I'm really proud. Honestly, I'm just incredibly proud of what's going on for you today, and long may it continue.
Yeah. Cool. And can I just quickly say another thing about Broadway Lodge that I didn't get in if we've got time?
Of course, we've got plenty of time.
One thing that I absolutely loved as well is one thing that a lot of people that come into Broadway Lodge, myself as well, I came in and I was on my bottom, right? My self-care was disgusting. I was living... I've got this thing I was saying earlier about my cleanliness and all that, and when I'm well, it's very, very, probably a little bit over the top, but the rooms here are beautiful, and that was another highlight, being given my room because my needing to have the toilet and everything, and I had my own ensuite, like my own shower and that.
Oh yeah, of course, yes.
Even down to the bedding, it's luxury bedding and the beds and everything. You give us dignity, and most of us, I'd say all of us, haven't had that for a bloody long time.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I will say thank you for as well.
Well, I don't know what that noise is, it's probably my computer, but I want to just give an honourable shout out to the nurses who...
For sure.
Yeah.
For everybody here, everybody, the chefs, everybody, the cleaners, everybody, this whole place. Truly is the magic mansion, and I know I'm biased, but it was meant to be that I come here because I could have gone somewhere else.
Well, you know what, I'm glad that you came here, so let me just give an honourable shout out to the nurses and the cleaners who do an amazing, oh my God, they're just magical. They're like, the cleaners are like the little elves around here. They come up with cakes and birthdays and they do little celebrations, and if it's your birthday, I don't know how they find out, but they find out and they make sure that your birthday gets celebrated. The nurses, literally, if the nurses weren't here physically, you wouldn't get well. Michele, God bless you. I love you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and I love you too. And I just much love for Broadway Lodge. There's not enough words to thank this absolute Miracle Mansion.